Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Well, good morning, everyone. A great good morning to you. As you can imagine, there are an announcement or two. I'm very happy to say to you again that Swami Sarvadevananda, our head minister, plans to visit here from May 17th to May 19th. He will be available for private interviews and to give spiritual instruction, including initiation. He expects me to manage his calendar for the visit, so if you wish to talk with him or receive instruction, please email me right away. That can be done through the center's website, and when you email, please do include your phone number. The Swami will very likely meet with those people who are asking for initiation on the 17th. He'll arrive sometime in the afternoon, and we'll meet with them that afternoon and evening. Then on the morning of the 18th, starting early in the morning, he will offer initiation. That ceremony concludes with a breakfast for those who he has initiated, and his disciples, a breakfast after the initiation here in the monastery. Those of you who wish to meet with him otherwise will meet with him later on the 18th or on the morning of the 19th. As I say, I'll be scheduling all that, and you will receive plenty of notice as to when your appointment is set. All of this activity, obviously, is planned to be face-to-face. That's because we hope to have their center open for face-to-face meetings by the beginning of May. This is being evaluated each week. Read your e-newsletter or check the center's Facebook page or website for updates. When we do reopen, all classes and talks will, of course, continue to be offered over Zoom as well as face-to-face. So is there anything I might have or should have announced that I didn't think to announce? All right. So we've offered our chant and the welcome. We'll start with this. March has been a month for study of Karma Yoga, a spiritual path leading to the abandonment of selfishness. That's the heart and soul of karma yoga, as the heart and soul of bhakti yoga is finding, nurturing, and finally enjoying the fruit of reverence. The heart and soul of karma yoga is the abandonment of the I, me, mine point of view and way of being in the world, and adopting a thou, thee, thine way of being in the world. So that's karma yoga, a spiritual path leading to the abandonment of selfishness. As a karma yogi, you practice offering your actions and their results, as well as your perceptions, thoughts, and feelings to the divine presence. In many Ramakrishna Mission centers, this prayer is chanted by the congregation in unison at the end of a puja's homa fire ceremony. There's the puja itself, and then at the end of a puja, there is a homa fire, which is a ceremonial fire that includes this prayer. No matter what I may have done, said, or thought, in waking, dreaming, or dreamless sleep, with my mind, my tongue, my hands, my other members, in waking, dreaming, or dreamless sleep, with my mind, my tongue, my hands, or my other members, may all that be an offering to the divine presence. Even before fully knowing this presence, you hold firmly to the belief that the presence is within each person or other living being that you interact with or serve. Working and abiding in this spirit, you are increasingly able to release attachments to your activities and their results. This yields the freedom and contentment promised by karma yoga. As Sri Krishna says in chapter 2 of the Gita, even a little practice of this yoga will save you from the terrible wheel of rebirth and death. So before we go ahead with today's topic, does all that give rise to any comment from your own wisdom or experience, or any concern or question from any of you? Anything that was said in that definition of karma yoga?
It gives a lot of mental peace.
Yes, it does. It does indeed give a lot of mental peace. Thank you, Balakrishna. So today's topic is one with which we'll have a little fun. It's called, the topic for today is the wonder of your Stardust Spacesuit, your body. Swami Vivekananda said in a talk on evolution that the seed of every woman or man hearing this was born with time, space, and causation itself. In other words, you, the you of you, the seed that has become the human being sitting there, was born all that time ago. That seed has been evolving what it contained for billions of years, clothing itself in ever more complex and specialized forms. You, the person who can be seen reflected in a mirror, are the result of that evolution. You, the one that you see reflected in the mirror, are the result of that evolution. The garment you wear now, the spacesuit created to make a livable reality out of the numberless frequencies of vibration that are our universe, truly meets the definition of a wonder. And it is a cause for great wonder as we define it. And this will be just a very limited but interesting definition from several perspectives. Just imagine this was created by the process of evolution. And as we'll see, we're only a very short way into this process of evolution. Your spacesuit is quite literally made of stardust, forms of matter created by exploding stars. According to cosmologists, this process of star formation and transformation is approximately 13.7 billion years old. So when I said you were born with time, space, and causation itself, the seed of what is sitting here this morning, hearing this, its evolution has been going on for 13.7 billion years. One result is the human being, an astounding, self-replicating, self-sustaining, self-repairing life form, some of whom have joined us this morning to help develop and discuss these ideas. What has 13.7 billion years of evolution come to? What is your Stardust Spacesuit? As I said, we're going to approach this from several perspectives, from the most physical to the least physical. Let's start with this very physical description. Listen to Bonnie Bassler, PhD, a microbiologist who studies bacteria. This is from her TED Talk. You can find it online. Dr. Bassler discovered that bacteria talk to each other using a chemical language that lets them communicate defense and that lets them coordinate defense and mount attacks. Her research has stunning implications for medicine, industry, and our understanding of ourselves. Dr. Bassler says, bacteria are the oldest living organisms on the earth. They've been here for billions of years, and what they are single-celled microscopic organisms. So they're one cell, and they have this special property that they only have one piece of DNA. So they have very few genes and genetic information to encode all of the traits that they carry out. And the way bacteria make a living is that they consume nutrients from the environment. They get to twice their size, then cut themselves down in the middle, and one cell becomes two, and so on and so on. They just grow and divide and grow and divide. So a kind of boring life, except that what I would argue is just, what I would argue is that you have an amazing interaction with these critters. I know you guys think of yourselves as humans, and this is sort of how I think of you. There's about 1 trillion human cells that make each one of us. what we are, and able to do all the things we do. I'll repeat that. There's about 1 trillion human cells that make each one of us who we are and able to do all the things that we do. But you have 10 trillion bacterial cells in you or on you at any moment in your life. So 10 times more bacterial cells than human cells on a human being. And of course, it's the DNA that counts. So there's the A's, T's, G's, and C's that make up your genetic code and give you all your charming characteristics. You have about 30,000 genes. Well, it turns out that you have 100 times more bacterial genes playing a role in you or on you all of your life. So at the best, you're 10% human, more likely about 1% human, depending on which of these metrics you like. I know you think of yourself as human beings, but I think of you as 90 or 99% bacterial. Mm-hmm. Yet these bacteria, the materials of your spacesuit, that's the end of the quote from her. Yet these bacteria, like the materials of your spacesuit, are, like everything else in the universe, forms created by the numberless frequencies of vibration. So before we go on into that next level of definition, is there anything that anyone would like to contribute for their own experience, their own wisdom, or any concern or question that this raises about you being a bacterial phenomenon created by universe over billions of years?
Amadas here. I'd like to share.
Please.
This is, I love this stuff. And I was hoping that you were going to get to the numbers part of it because I'm a numbers guy. The same thing is true for a shovel full of earth. It contains more weight in microbes than it does in actual dirt. Mm-hmm. Earth is made up primarily of microbes, which is the living part of Earth. The rest of it's just dirt. And the smallest percentage of it is dirt. The alive part of it is microbes. And that's where Mother Earth does her magic. And the same thing is true with us in the same way that we're 70% water and so is the planet. You know, those correlations just strike right to my heart. That's my share. Thank you for bringing up this topic. It's beautiful. I love it.
All right, Amadas. Yes, so do I. And by the way, for those of you who enjoy such things, Dr. Bassler's TED Talk is very entertaining. I've given you just a tiny portion of it. She's very animated, very, very with you. You can find, just put in the YouTube search window or whatever search window you use, just put in a microbiologist bacterial communication and it'll come right up. Anything else from anyone about this bacterial level, this physical level of our being, which, as Amadas pointed out, is only just part of the entirety of this system, this ecosystem that we're integrated with.
I would like to share. I agree with Amadas that this stuff is great. I love this stuff. There's a little prayer that I will say sometimes for someone if they seem to be their health is failing, including myself, which is, may all the cells of your body and being work together harmoniously for your optimal well-being. Because cells of your body and being, the being is like the microbes. I don't say microbes, but that's what I'm talking about, because it's not just our body as we think of it. It's this whole, you know, the human cells, the microbe cells, and then beyond that, there are subtle cells.
Yes.
So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, I love this stuff. This is great. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. What a sweet little prayer.
Brother Shankar,
Yes, Bhagarat.
see, this whole bacterial and microbial existence puts us so near to God because that's the only way you can explain. And in describing Shankara, Shiva, he says, Anorak Pranayam Mahato Mahiyam. He's smaller than the smallest and larger than the largest, younger than the youngest and older than the oldest, nearer than the nearest and farther than the farthest. These are not just play of words, they are literally true. And when you say the microbes, it's amazing that on this earth, even in the geyser with boiling water, there are bacteria right there, surviving and thriving. And
Yes.
if you go to the North Pole, even in the cold, even in the iceberg, you'll find the bacteria living and comfortably living there. So that to me is so mind-boggling.
Yes, that's exactly what I mean by the wonder of all this.
Yeah.
It is mind-boggling. And you're right. And it's because, as Dr. Bassler points out, these forms of life are billions of years old. They know stuff, and they are very smart within their context, just like we're very smart, but only in our context, as we'll go on finding out. Anything else from anyone?
But just in the way, what I was thinking, that just in the way, if you slightly enlarge a copy of a bacterium, it becomes amoeba, a unicellular organism, and they are our ancestors. Amoeba are our real ancestors. And yet, the amoeba, they divide and multiply. And we multiply and then divide.
Well said. All right.
If I may, real quick, just
Yes.
piggyback on what Bhagarat said. It's the microbes that live in the Yellowstone Old Faithful at 165 degrees. The man that studied those for decades has provided the kernel that makes the mRNA vaccine effective today. There's a direct connection between those 165-degree microbes and the effectiveness of our mRNA vaccines against the virus that is a pandemic against the world right now. So a man saw that connection and at the level of microbes found an answer for what human beings, our inability to deal with viruses is what causes the pandemic, not the virus. It's our inability to deal with it.
Yes.
And this man, by studying microbes that live in 165-degree temperatures, has made that connection that allows me to be healthy today. I'm in with that.
Thank you, Amadas. Very well said.
Brother Shankara, this is Krishna Kali.
Yes.
I recall something Vivekananda said. He said, what is evolute in the Buddha is involute in the bacteria. I may be paraphrasing it. I can't quite recall the exact
you're
words.
absolutely right.
Can you remind me of that, please?
Well, this is part of that talk on evolution, from which I'll take more later from Vivekananda. The idea is that it was all involute in the very seed of being that was created in the earliest manifestation of universe. It was all involute in that, as the entire banyan tree is involute in that tiny seed. It could, you may have a 10-acre banyan tree, all one tree, all the instructions for creating that giant tree with many trunks and many apparently different trees, but all really one tree. All of the instructions for doing that are created are resident, involute in that tiny seed. This lets you know how subtle the universe is, which is the next level of the discovery that we'll go into about what it is that our Stardust Spacesuit is and is made of. Thank you, Krishna Kali. Yes, that which becomes the Buddha, that which becomes Christ, that which becomes Sri Ramakrishna, all is involute, and we are all, according to Vivekananda, headed that direction.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, Uma.
I just remember one line, poetic line of a Gujarati Bhakta poet, Narsi Mehta, who Vaishnavajan Gandhiji used in his prayers. In that one of his bhajans, he says, Vrukshama bij tum. You are the seed in this tree that is blooming, and this is growing and just a splendid tree. And same time, then he says the opposite, that you are bijma vrukshatu, vrukshama bijtu. And just like a whole tree is just growing from that one tiny seed. Seed I see in this large tree. And now I understand why. So I'm thrilled by this subject, that this is a scientific way of understanding that spiritual idea, that what is seed in a tree and the tree is in this seed. So this is fascinating.
Yes, it is indeed. And as you'll see in this next level, it goes subtler and subtler. Yes, these bacteria, the materials of your spacesuit, are, like everything else in the universe, forms created by numberless frequencies of vibration. What vibration? Here's an explanation by Don Lincoln, a PhD in quantum physics. Lincoln is a senior experimental particle physicist at Fermi National Accelerator Laboratory and guest professor of high energy physics at the University of Notre Dame. He splits his research time between Fermi Lab and the CERN laboratory in Switzerland, that huge accelerator. He has co-authored more than 500 scientific papers on subjects from microscopic black holes and extra dimensions to the Higgs boson. Here's a little of what Don Lincoln knows. Quote, quantum mechanics tells us that an electron is both a particle and a wave, and you can never be certain what it will do. Relativity tells us that clocks aren't absolute, distances depend on the observer, and that energy can be converted into matter and back again. These ideas are correct, but they're just the tip of the iceberg. Physicists now use a class of theories called quantum field theories to describe physical reality. Let's think about electrons. Everywhere in the universe, there is a field called the electron field. Let me repeat that. Everywhere in the universe, there is a field called the electron field. A physical electron isn't the field, but rather a localized vibration in the field. In fact, every electron in the universe is a similar localized vibration of that single field. Consciousness is primary and is not plural. I've interjected that. One field. We'll see. We're headed toward a definition of consciousness. Now back to Lincoln. Electrons aren't the only particles to consist of localized vibrations of a field, all particles do. Indeed, there is a field for every known particle. And for all of them, the thing that we visualize as a particle is just a localized vibration of that field. Even the Higgs boson is like this. The Higgs field interacts with particles and gives them their mass. But it is hard to observe this field directly. Instead, we supply energy to the field in particle collisions and cause it to vibrate. When we say we've discovered the Higgs boson, you should think we've caused the Higgs field to vibrate and observed the vibrations. Quantum fields, this is Lincoln Still, quantum fields are really a mind-bending way of thinking. Everything, and I mean everything, is just a consequence of many infinitely large fields. Everything, and I mean everything, is just a consequence of many infinitely large fields vibrating. The entire universe is made of fields playing a vast subatomic symphony. Physicists are trying to understand the melody. So before I go ahead with the next level of definition of what this Stardust Spacesuit truly is, we've seen that at a physical reality, it is an assemblage of trillions of single-celled organisms cooperating with one another, cooperating, communicating. They are what we do. They enable us to be all that we are, these bacteria. The bacteria, like everything else in the universe, are made of vibration. These infinite large fields. So what seems to be a solid object sitting here, pounding on what seems to be solid table, that's all illusory. It's all our learned behaviors that make us think this is solid and that is solid. So any comments, any wisdom from your own experience, any concerns or questions that this next level of understanding of what this spacesuit is?
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
does this relate to the level of consciousness?
We're getting there. We'll get there
okay.
next.
And sentience and okay, non-sentient things. Okay.
That's where we're going next.
Thank you.
There is no such thing as a non-sentient thing. There is no such thing as a non-sentient thing. All things are inherently sentient. As John Dobson pointed out, when he held up a set of keys and released them, he says, "Don't tell me these keys don't know anything." He let them go. They fell. He said, "They know where down is." So there's no such thing as insentience. There's levels of sentience. So
Thank you.
we'll get there. And we'll get there through the sage Vashishta.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
question. What have, I don't know whether that question belongs here or not. What fall sick? How
Excuse me, Uma, let me finish this cough. It seems the pollens are causing my
exactly?
cough to kick up. So sorry, Uma, what is the question?
What happens, just like you are coughing right now, right? Suppose not feeling well, or pollen and all these things that attack our body. In other words, when we fall sick, what happens to the bacteria? Do they cause all that trouble by getting infected?
There is a huge war going on in your body all the time.
Yeah.
Bhagirath could tell us much more about this. Your immune system is constantly fighting those invasive bacteria. You're constantly developing cancer cells, and your immune system, your body kills those cells before they can become a cancer tumor. And as Amadas pointed out earlier, there's still things that our body is not able to deal with. Viruses, for example, that can overwhelm our immune system. So they need help with things like these vaccines and so on.
So that means that just like people, bacteria also are good at bad, good or wicked.
Ha! Ha! Well, you can look at it that way, Uma. There's just darkness and light.
Yeah.
If you want to call it good and wicked, fine. But there's the dark aspects of life and the bright aspects of life. And everything is a constant, very fluid interaction between the two. And we are adventurers on that path of life, in the sometimes smooth, sometimes thorny, or you can say we're surfers on the waves of consciousness. Thank you. Yes, well, what indeed is the role of darkness within us? Okay, anything else from anyone? Okay.
Brother Shankara,
Yes.
I'll say something now that we're talking about quantum mechanics. Well, two things about the field and how everything is connected through a field. I would also add that not only does everything exist in this field, but everything within the field is attracted to each other by Newton's law of gravity. That every molecule, every atom in the universe is attracted to each other. It varies in strength, but depending on the mass of each. But not only is everything contained within the same field, but it's also attracted to each other. So kind of goes that I was once one, now I am many, and then it's coming back to one. I relate it to that.
Yes, that's one explanation, Roberto. The other has to do with the dark energy and the fact that the universe is flying apart at an increasing rate.
Yeah. Okay, and then also about the speaking about the electrons. I think it's fascinating that electrons don't exist until you observe them. So this is, I think, maybe where consciousness comes in that electrons are in a quantum state, and then your observation, your perception of them is what gives them existence and what creates your whole universe. I just like to add that.
And that's why Lincoln pointed out they can be both a particle and a wave. It depends on what you expect to see. It's not and he says you don't know what they're going to do inherently. This is the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. There just is no way of knowing all of the data about an electron all at once. Now that is a phenomenon that is at the basis of quantum mechanics. As Dr. Richard Feynman pointed out, you cannot understand quantum mechanics unless you understand Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. And it is what drove Einstein about round the bend, because he could not deal with this aspect of universe and insisted that it was just not yet properly understood.
I think Einstein said he wouldn't believe that God would just play dice with the universe.
Right. He wouldn't believe that it was probabilistic. And he may be yet right. Who knows? There may yet, but so far, Bell's theorem, which is the theorem that holds sway in the quantum studies, says that it is indeed probabilistic. It certainly makes understandable certain of the things that sages like Sri Ramakrishna say when they say that when they characterize universe as mother, that she is capricious, that this is her sport, and that it's a mad, M-A-D, mad play. So thank you, Roberto. Yes, this business, we can talk a long time about the science of this, but I'm drilling down here, and unless there's real reason to, we can leave the science now for the time being. Anything else, though, from anyone? Okay.
I had one comment, Brother Shankara.
Yes, please.
Just seems to me we're describing the hard problem of consciousness.
Well, that's what we're getting to next, John.
Okay.
That's the next drill. That's the next level of drilling down. So, as Don Lincoln said, physicists are trying to understand the melody of this subatomic, this very subtle symphony. Yes, a symphony indeed, a symphony that was understood from a very different perspective many thousands of years ago. Listen to the sage Vashishta, an advisor to the court of Ayodhya, as he tells Prince Rama, "Oh, my dear child, how strange is this world. How strange is this world bewitching Maya." In other words, the play of this symphony, this subatomic symphony. Being deluded by this Maya, one cannot know the self, though the self has pervaded all through the limbs of the body. And as a stage set or as a mirage water in the desert are not true, in the similar manner, this observable universe is not true. To explain what he means by not true, Vashishta says, this creation, which is merely of the form of a vibration of consciousness alone, this creation, which is merely of the form of a vibration of consciousness alone, is dissolved by accurate knowledge and arises again with false knowledge, just as the false knowledge of the snake arises on the rope. We're all familiar with we see a coil of rope in the semi-darkness and we take it to be a snake. We impose the idea of snake on the rope. It isn't that nothing's there, something's there, but we imagine snake. So what Don Lincoln calls quantum fields of vibration is a vibration of consciousness itself. And that's why there was recently an article in Scientific American that said, does consciousness pervade the universe? Now, of course, the answer was both yes and no, of course, because there's many points of view on that. But at least Scientific American itself is raising the question. What Don Lincoln calls quantum fields of vibration is vibration of consciousness itself. According to Vashishta, this vibration of consciousness is Maya. This vibration of consciousness is Maya, which he describes as illogical, dreamlike, illusory, and deliberately delusory or deceptive, like a magic show. In other words, it is probabilistic. It cannot be defined accurately, just as said by Heisenberg in his principle of uncertainty, the uncertainty principle. It is illogical, dreamlike, illusory, and deliberately delusory or deceptive, like a magic show. Vashishta continues, when the cosmic mind manifested itself in the absolute Brahman, at that very instant, the natural tendencies of diverse beings and their behavior were born, and the embodied beings came to be regarded as jiva, that which breathes. So just exactly as was said before, coming from Vivekananda, this all began the moment the cosmic mind said, I am one, I shall become many. At that very instant, the natural tendencies of the diverse beings and their behavior were born, and the embodied beings came to be regarded as jiva. That is, they evolved to that point. There is no division between mind and action. Before it is projected as action, it arises in the mind with the mind itself as its body. Hence, action is nothing but the movement of energy. Hence, action is nothing but the movement of energy, vibration in consciousness. And it inevitably bears its own fruits. When such action comes to an end, mind comes to an end too, and when the mind ceases to be, there is no action. Now we see that these bodies, these spacesuits, they come into being and they disappear. Behind the physical body is the subtle body. It takes much longer for the subtle body to dissolve or disappear and cease to be. So before we go on, is there anything that wants to be commented on from your own wisdom or experience, or any concern or question that this raises? All right. As I said, Vashishta points to the final end of being itself. But there is something that comes in between. This is from Vivekananda. According to the teachings of India's sages, there are different goals for the soul when it is still clothed in the subtle body. Those that are very spiritual when they die, by very spiritual, the Swami means those the mirror of whose heart has been cleansed and the raging forest fire of worldly lust has been quenched, as is mentioned in the beginning of Chaitanya's prayer. Those that are very spiritual when they die, those that are very spiritual when they die, follow the solar rays and reach what is called the solar sphere, through which they reach what is called the lunar sphere, and through that they reach what is called the sphere of lightning, and there they meet with another soul who is already blessed, and he guides the newcomer forward to the highest of all spheres, which is called the Brahmaloka, the sphere of Brahm. There the souls attain to omniscience and omnipotence, become almost as powerful and as all-knowing as God himself, and they reside there forever, according to the dualists, or according to the non-dualists, they become one with the universal at the end of the cycle. Now, what is all this pointing to? This physical body, this physical spacesuit, is one kind of spacesuit. There is a subtle body made of the mind, the intellect, and the bliss body or causal body, which is the reflection of the soul itself. This also transmigrates and goes through these places that this solar sphere, the lunar sphere, the sphere of lightning, to Brahmaloka, and you finish your attainment of knowledge and become omniscient, and you attain all power, you become omnipotent, and you become omnipresent. This is described in some detail in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, this process. So this is the next level of our spacesuit. When we're finished needing or wanting a physical presence, we attain to this other state and continue to grow. And as Krishna Kali pointed out earlier, each of us is destined to become, she mentioned the word Buddha in his talk on Christ the Messenger. Swami Vivekananda pointed out that over the next, we're only we're less than 14 billion years into a cycle that lasts 110 billion years. There's time for each of us to become a fully realized being, one with the divine presence. And as Swami Swahananda said, we are each called upon to be a Christ or a Buddha or a Ramakrishna or however. If you remember in the Gita, Sri Krishna takes Arjuna to a tree and says, "What do you see?" And from a distance, Arjuna says, "It looks like there are bunches of fruit hanging on the tree." Sri Krishna takes him nearer. And what each of these bunches is a bunch of Krishnas waiting to take their turn. In every age I return. So this is the destiny. This is the great wonder of our Stardust Spacesuit. We take this physical form for a time until we no longer need it or want it. Then we go on in our subtle form and we attain to this highest state of being, where we too become, having become one, as Christ said, "I and my Father are one." This is exactly what the Swami was pointing to. So before we go on and read something that is really lovely about this state of being, about this spacesuit business, it's from another perspective yet. Is there anything else?
Brother Shankara, I don't want to bring stuff that is non-Vedantic into the conversation, But if I may say, I ran into an NDE experience, NDE, near-death experience. And it was uncannily close to what the Vedas say. All these solar phases, the lunar, and then going to the bright shining light, even the verbiage of people who had no contact with the Vedas are using words like, I felt like a drop went back into the ocean. I mean, it was like a veil, the Maya. I mean, they talk the same language, the same lingo. It was, I'm sorry to say, this is very, what do you call it? Very rudimentary understanding, but I was like, how did the Vedas know all this? And people who have completely disassociated with our lineage are talking the same language as the Vedas.
Well, the Vedas, Krishna Kali, the Vedas say it clearly. Truth is one. Sages call it by many names. The sages come from many perspectives. And we don't need to restrict our conversation to what is Vedantic. In a sense, it's all Vedantic, Sanatana Dharma. The perennial philosophy is the umbrella that covers it all, as Vivekananda points out. But of course, people who have had these profound near-death experiences are going to witness that and hear and see those things that the sages saw in the depths of their meditation, or in some cases, in near-death experiences. These two are related in the ancient scriptures of India and the ancient scriptures of all the cultures that kept scriptures. These near-death experiences are there. The Babylonians, the Egyptians, the Greeks, all of these, it's all mentioned there. Near-death experiences are nothing modern. They're just more scientifically investigated now. So thank you for bringing that up, Krishna Kali. Yes, that is the truth is behind the appearance. And we'll close with a reading about how to see the appearance in its highest form. Okay, if there's nothing else, I will read. What to make of all this? What is an auspicious way to think of and be with your wondrous spacesuit? We'll close with this from Anamkara, a book of Celtic wisdom by John O'Donohue. Anamkara means love of the soul. So this starts the quote from John O'Donohue. O'Donohue, by the way, is spelled O'Donohue, as we would say in English, but in Irish it's pronounced O'Donohue. Quote, "The human body is beautiful. It is such a privilege to be embodied. Your home is decorated and personalized. It takes on the soul of the person who lives there and becomes the mirror of the spirit. Yet, in the deepest sense, the body is the most intimate place. Your body is your clay house, your home. Your body is the only home that you have in this universe. It is in and through your body that your soul becomes visible and real for you. Your body is the home of your soul on earth. Often there seems to be an uncanny appropriateness between the soul and the shape and physical presence of the body. This is not true in all instances, but frequently it is. But frequently it yields an insight into the nature of a person's inner world. There is a secret relationship between your physical being and the rhythm of your soul. there is a secret relationship between your physical being and the rhythm of your soul. The body is the place where the soul shows itself. A friend from Connemara once said to me that the body is the angel of the soul. The body is the angel who expresses and minds the soul. We should always pay loving attention to our bodies. A primordial innocence surrounds the body, an incredible brightness and goodness. The body is the angel of the life. The body can be home to a great range and intensity of presence. The most exuberant expression of the body is in dance. Dance theater is wonderful. The dance becomes fluent sculpture. The body shapes the emptiness poignantly and majestically. The most exuberant expression of the body is in dance. Dance theater is wonderful. The dance becomes fluent sculpture. The body shapes the emptiness poignantly and majestically. The body is a sacrament. The old traditional definition of sacrament captures this beautifully. A sacrament is a visible sign of invisible grace. In that definition, there is a fine acknowledgement of how the unseen world comes to expression in the visible world. The desire for expression lies deep in the heart of the invisible world. The desire for expression lies deep at the heart of the invisible world. I am one, I shall become many. All our inner life and intimacy of soul longs, all our inner life and intimacy of soul longs to find an outer mirror. It longs for a form in which it can be seen, felt, and touched. The body is the mirror where the secret world of the soul comes to expression. The body is a sacred threshold, and it deserves to be respected, minded, and understood in its spiritual nature. This sense of the body is wonderfully expressed in an amazing phrase from the Catholic tradition. The body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. The body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit holds the intimacy and distance of the Trinity. The Holy Spirit holds the intimacy and distance of the Holy Trinity, alert and personified. To describe the human body as the temple of the Holy Spirit recognizes that the body is suffused with wild and vital divinity. This theological insight shows that sensuousness is sacred in the deepest sense. The truth is in the universe. Your body is in the soul, and the soul suffuses you completely. Your body is in the soul, within the soul. In other words, the soul is not within the body. The body is within the soul. Your body is in the soul, and the soul suffuses you completely. Therefore, all around you, there is a secret and beautiful soul light. This recognition suggests a new art of prayer. Close your eyes and relax into your body. Imagine a light all around you, the light of your soul. Then, with your breath, draw that light into your body and bring with your breath through every area of your body. This is a lovely way to pray because you are bringing the soul light, the shadowed shelter that surrounds you, light into the physical earth and clay of your presence. This is a lovely way to pray because you're bringing the soul light, the shadowed shelter, light that surrounds you, light into the physical earth and clay of your presence. That's the end of the quote. There's much, much more to that section of the book. But let's leave it at that. All of this, by the way, will be in the notes for anyone who wants to find it. Is there anything that you would like to add? And if so, please do.
Brother Shankara?
Yes, Bhagirath.
The word world in English is called Jagat in Sanskrit.
Yes.
That means it is constantly in motion. That ga sound denotes motion. That is why I say Astatvamastat Gamaya. Take me. That means there is a universal constantly playing dance. That is why we call Shiva to be playing Tandava, the destructive dance, but he knows that unless there is destruction, there cannot be construction.
There must be transformation, yes.
Yes. So we are in the pull of a kinetic energy, and we ourselves are marching from life to death, and the costume keeps on changing. And we think the end of the costume is the end of the body. It is not. That is why death is not called death, but it is called dehanta in Sanskrit, the end of the body. It is not the end of life.
No.
It is the end of the body. And the play goes on and on and on. That is why Alice in Wonderland, when she's constantly moving, somebody asks her, why do you keep on running like this? He says, around here, if you want to stay in the same place, you have to keep running. It shows the hyperdynamic state in which we are located. And the only thing is that we have to recognize that we are always in transit. And that is why your idea that ultimately you reach Brahmaloka is so valid. Vedantic wise, it is so valid. Scientifically, if you want to put it that way, it is very valid too. But until then, there is a lot of random movement that we are doing. Random. Not knowing where we are going or which way we are moving. Ultimately, you will reach there, but if it is random, it will take a lot longer than when it's purposeful and planned.
Yes, that's why David Bowie created that wonderful character, Ziggy Stardust. Ziggy in English slang means erratic. Erratic stardust. We are a stardust being, and as you said, we're dynamically in motion, most of it erratic. It's when we become more deliberate in our spiritual practices, and it still is not going to be linear. That's a figment of the left mind's imagination, this linearity. But nevertheless, if we see it as an adventure, if we see it as Dorothy's journey from Munchkinland to Oz, then it is a beautiful and particularly if we dance along the way.
Brother Shankara, may I add something?
Well, of
Krishna
course.
Kali? Swami Sarvadevananda is, like Einstein said, if you If you don't know how to make it simple, you don't know it. So brother Swami Sarvadevananda makes things so simple. He made a chance comment when I asked about the body and all and the soul. And this is what he said. He says, well, look at milk. If you boil milk, don't you get a cream on top? The cream is solid. The milk is liquid. And if you boil it too long, it all vaporizes, right? So basically our body is like what you read, that it is the soul is, the body is the angel of the soul. Basically, it's all a continuum. It's only become the gross state from the liquid state, and the liquid state turns into the gaseous state, which is like Nirguna Brahman, and then Saguna Brahman is all one whole continuum.
Very well said. And of course, what Swami Sarvadevananda was paraphrasing is something that was said by Einstein, that you can only explain it if you understand it, and you will if you can explain it simply, then you really understand it. And as Dr. Richard Feynman said to a doctoral candidate who was giving this long-winded explanation of his dissertation proposal, and Dr. Feynman said, well, I don't really understand what you've been saying. And the young man was cheeky. He said, well, you must understand. And Dr. Feynman is very complicated. And Dr. Feynman said, if you can't explain it in plain English, you don't understand it. So we're doing our best to explain these things in plain English, using the best things we can find. But the wish from here is that all of this has left you with a renewed wonder at this amazing machine that Mother has created in order to have her playmates in the universe, so that the one can become many, and the trick is not to become attached. Not to become attached. You know, we're just passing through. We're just, as Christ said, passers-by. And we have this vehicle for passing by, and this vehicle comes to an end. And if we're through needing this kind of vehicle, then we won't take another vehicle of this kind. We won't take another spacesuit of this kind. But that does not mean that the process is in any way finished. We go on and on and on until we become one with the divinity. Yes.
I found it was a very interesting concept of what you said, of the thinking of the soul, the body being in the soul, as opposed to the soul being in the body. That also aids you in being detached from the physical, if you think of it.
Yes.
In that way.
Thank you, Robert. You're absolutely right. And by the way, if you read Pim Van Lammel's book on consciousness, Pim, P-I-M-V-A-N, Van Lammel, L-O-M-M-E-L, he wrote a book on consciousness. He absolutely nails this business, that the body is within this light that was spoken of, that your body is surrounded. And of course, this is part of the Gnostic teachings. It's part of the teachings of the Yaqui Toltec tradition, that there is this egg of light that surrounds you, and your body is within that egg of light. Sri Ramakrishna actually saw it too. He found it very amusing when he saw it, that these eggs were bouncing toward him.
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
I don't know. I was thinking, can both statements be true? Body is in the soul and the soul is in the body. Like, you know, think of jiva.
Well, it's the soul suffuses the body. So yes, as Vashishta points out, it suffuses the body. But is it contained within the body? No.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Oh, Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
I'm trying to resolve one contradiction, or I'm trying to understand. There are two contradicting perspectives about body in Indian tradition. One, which I would say Shankaracharya, what he said, and most of the time he presented human body as an handicap, as negative, as full of unruly emotions and senses and sense enjoyments and all this mind, which is also leading you astray sometimes, temptations. And so in Jainism also, body is considered a culprit, and it comes in the way of realization or of soul fulfillment. And I'm trying to resolve in my mind that could it be that it depends on your perspective about how you use your senses, how you use your mind. Body is not bad. The way body is not understood or
Of course it's not bad.
Yeah.
And we have to understand when we think about Adi Shankaracharya,
Yeah.
who he was teaching. He was teaching a bunch of very virile, very people who were in the grip of their genetic code. You know, these were young men, almost exclusively. There were no women. And in those days, it just wasn't done. These were all virile young men in the grip of their, and so he was trying to show them that the body could be their enemy, and that certainly that which they were attracted to in fulfilling their genetic imperative for self-reproduction was could be seen as a vile thing. Now, of course, this has arisen in virtually every spiritual tradition.
Yeah.
It became a real fetish in the Catholic Church. People beating themselves with the flagella and wearing hair shirts and exaggerated fasts. And Krishna just says specifically in the Gita, oh, stop all that stuff. It just outrages me as the Atman. No. What does Krishna teach us? Have a balanced point of view.
Right.
Yes, take the middle path. Yes, the body can be a source of entanglement. But so can food.
Yeah.
So can alcohol. So can this, that, and the other thing. There are many, many ways of self-medicating. What is self-medicating? Just anesthetizing yourself so that you do not face the reality. This is what most people are doing most of the time.
Thank you.
Whether it's television or drink or exaggerated sports, this, that, and the other. They're self-medicating so that they don't deal with these other senses that they have, that there's something more profound.
Thanks for this clarification, because this is so used to be confusing But I agree with you that it depends on how you use each faculty that God has given, that God
Yes.
put in the body.
Well, if you read the poem Love Poems from God, you'll see that each one of those saints says,
Yeah.
how can anything that the beloved made be imperfect?
Mhm. True.
And it is very convincing when they say it.
Mhm.
And if the intention is to learn, I'm going to look for learning everywhere around me, which includes in the body, in the spirit, in my mind, in the brain, in my neighbors, in my sangha, in my satsang. I'm going to look for lessons everywhere and not exclude anything.
Well, this is one of the prime directives of the Native American way of spirituality. That it's speaking to you and peeping at you all the time, from everywhere.
Yes. And they were nature mystics.
Oh,
They were looking for God everywhere. They were with God everywhere.
They still are.
And it's my understanding the Sikhs grow their hair as antennas to attract that energy.
Is it so? Oh, be darned. I'd never heard that before. That's charming. As antennas. Ha ha ha. Oh my goodness. Anything else from anyone?
The middle path was, sorry, somebody was saying something.
No, go ahead, Krishna Kali, whoever it is.
This self-flagellation that is considered to be a way of honoring Christ, and standing on your foot with your hands raised, it may be considered appeasing God in the Eastern culture. So any kind of self-mortification, trying to hurt the body, trying to deface it, considering it bad, has been seen in all cultures and religions. But Buddha, who also starved himself almost to death to get salvation, realized that it's the very body that you are killing that will take you to spirituality, to the heights of spirituality. And therefore he said, take the middle path. You can't starve yourself to death. And that's when a porridge saved him. And when a lady came and gave him porridge, it saved him from death. And then at the end of his life, somebody gave him decomposed, decomposed or whatever, bad meat,
bad pork, yeah.
Bad pork, and he died. He says, one thing gave me the body and one thing took away my body, and both of them are both were auspicious.
Yes, both were sacred. Absolutely. So somebody else was starting to speak at the same time as Krishna Kali. Anyone?
Shankara?
Yes, dear.
Speaking of the body, I wanted to bring up fascia, which is incredible. It's throughout our system. It's connective tissue, and it's pretty much like a three-dimensional web throughout our body, and it supports everything. It surrounds and supports everything in our body. And they have found that there are photons in our fascia.
So we're self-luminous, eh?
Yes. Yes.
Doesn't surprise me. But thank you for bringing it up, Lori. Photons in our fascia. That scans well. That belongs in a song.
Well, and John Barnes, who teaches myofascial release, believes that is consciousness, because we can actually photograph it now. We can see the pulses of light going through the web of fascia, and every cell in the body is wrapped in fascia. Every group of cells are wrapped in fascia. No two cells touch each other because there's at least 2 layers of fascia between them. Fascia is stronger than steel.
Bah. Well, what else could it be? We are made of consciousness. Consciousness is primary and is not plural. That was one of Swami Yogeshananda's most elementary teachings to people who would get a certain distance with him, he would then say to them, all right, this is what you have to assimilate. Consciousness is primary and is not plural. Therefore, everything is consciousness. End of sentence, end of paragraph. That's how he would put it.
Yes.
Thank you for bringing that out, Amadas, Lori and Amadas. Photons in our fascia. I'd never heard that before. That's priceless.
And it feels like the perfect time to remind everyone that it's my understanding the largest recognized living organism on the planet is 106 acres of aspen tree in Utah, because it has the same root system. Underneath Mother Earth, it's the same root system from one side of the 106 acres to the other side of the 106 acres.
Wow.
What I, my whole life, have called aspen trees, the foresters call stems. They're clones. They're identical.
Wow.
You can cut down a stem on one side of the 106 acres, and it's felt by every stem and every part of the root system as a loss. If that does not describe humanity, please offer me a better illustration than that. I'm waiting. Because that to me describes humanity. We're all connected where we can't see it, and we pretend like we're separate.
Yes, we sure do.
I do anyway.
Well,
Except
no, we
when
all.
I'm with my brothers and sisters and I get to remember, you are
It's
my.
not just the humanity that's connected, that all of life is connected. That's why that prayer, let there be peace amongst the plants, amongst the animals, amongst the beings, amongst the planets. I mean, the hymn itself says everything is connected. Therefore, bring peace to everything before you get your own peace. So if you think you are going to be in peace and everybody else is, by putting everybody else or everything in discord, you won't get your peace. So that's what the hymn is trying to say.
Yes. Thank you.
Anything else from anyone? All right. Let there be peace in outer space. Let there be peace in the sky, on the earth, and in the waters. Let there be peace in the herbs, the plants, and the trees. May the gods be peaceful. May the whole universe be pervaded by peace. Let that infinite universal peace prevail throughout my being. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai, Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. May we go forward in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. So, tomorrow evening we're studying, not studying, but reading and discussing the beginning poet in Love Poems from God Again. We've restarted the book. The poet is named Rabia, R-A-B-I-A, a truly remarkable Sufi saint from the 8th century. On Tuesday, of course, we're continuing our study of Holy Mother's life. Swami Chaitanananda's book, Sri Sharada Devi, Her Divine Play. We're about 5/8 of the way through the book. On Wednesday night, we're studying Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga, we're on one of his most poignant talks. That is, it brings this quote that I read today was from that talk, the real and the apparent man. And so that's the weekday classes. Next Saturday, of course, we'll continue our discussion, reading and discussion of Swami Prabhavananda's translation of and commentary on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras titled How to Know God. And I honestly don't know what next Sunday's talk will be about yet. So it'll be in the newsletter. Any final thought from anyone? Okay, dears. Well, may you all be in the best of spirits, and may you enjoy the living daylights out of your Stardust Spacesuit. And in one way or the other, may you dance.
Thank you so much.
Until next time, dears. Bye-bye.
So grateful
Hey,
for
Gurudev.
our song.
Jai, jai, jai.